We'll briefly run you through who's here. Carmen Samuels is with us, who I know you know.
Hello.
Well,
hello, Your Honor.
Hello. Look what I got.
Oh my gosh. We need the English for these guys.
yes.
Probably one of the most touching books I ever read. I must say that nothing can be, for me, more important than doing this evening, because I love Shalva and I love Carmen, and I think this is a great goal, and really the best thing you can, many things you can say it's important, but there are many other things that are as important. Shalva is the most important.
Wait a minute, can we go back and record this, please?
We're recording.
Oh, good.
Say that again. I can say that again.
Should I let everybody in?
Not yet.
No, wait, Bluma, wait 1 minute. I'd just like to introduce Ambassador Hotovely to Debbie Fisher, who is the president of Shalva UK, with whom you'll be in conversation tonight. So I don't know where you are on each other's screens, but effectively the floor will be yours for the first section of the evening. And then we've got some questions that some of the donors sent before. We'll ask them if it's okay with you to just type in questions as well during the evening.
No problem. They're just checking with me if the Zoom is working.
Well, we think it looks good. It looks good from where we are.
See the flag, we see the picture behind you. It's the background.
The flag, we just ordered one from Israel to be a better one, but does it look like a flag?
Yeah. It's the flag. It's definitely the flag.
Should I admit everybody?
Yeah, I think we should let everyone in as 29.
But we should mute everyone except for Gaby.
Everyone in on mute. Yeah.
Everyone but Gaby.
Good evening, everyone. We're just letting everybody in from the waiting room. So we'll just wait 1 moment while everybody comes in, and then we'll start. The ambassador is with us. And we know that various people have various pressures this evening, particularly around 9 p.m. So we are here, and we'll start pretty sharply. For those that want their cameras on, feel free to have your camera open. But ideally to have your phone on mute and your computer on mute so that we won't have any interference. If you want to let me know when everyone who's in the waiting room is in, that would be good.
Everyone's in.
Okay, so we'll start. People will join, I think, as they go, but with the wish of keeping things timely this evening and appreciating how busy everybody is at the moment. First of all, I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm Gaby Hirsch, the Chief Exec of Shalva UK, and today marks International Women's Day, not just a British event, but of course, when we sat and we thought, how could we mark this auspicious day? The first person that came to mind was the first Israeli ambassador to the UK who is female, Ambassador Hotovely, and it gives me great pleasure. And we are very, very grateful for you coming out tonight, and thank you. And then we thought, who better than to interview her than our very own president of Shalva UK, Debbie Fisher. But before I pass it over to the two of you to enter conversation, I just would like to introduce Carmen Samuels, who I know you all know, but he would just like to welcome the ambassador and all of you tonight. Carmen, I'll pass it over to you if you want to unmute.
Okay, I was on mute. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us for this wonderful event in honor of International Women's Day. Shalva would not be here today if it wasn't for the vision, drive, and determination of a young woman who I married, my dear wife, Malky. I'm the front man, but there's someone underneath this radar that's making it all tick. I'm looking forward to listening to the conversation between two dear friends, our President Debbie Fisher and Ambassador Tzipi Hotovely, whom I had the pleasure of hosting at Shalva. Her sensitivity was remarkable. I now turn this back to you, Gaby.
Thank you. So I think the best thing now is if it's okay with you, we'll make sure we're going to keep you all on mute. But just Debbie and the Ambassador Hotovely will come off. We have, as you all know, invited you all to send in questions, and thank you to all of those who do. I'm sure many of you will be inspired to think of other things perhaps whilst they're speaking, which is great. And if you want to, you can just put it in the chat, either to me directly or for everybody to read. And shortly towards, in probably about 15, 20 minutes from now, we'll pass it over and we'll take questions effectively from the floor, but I will navigate that. So feel free to type in the chat if you want to, but I ask you, whilst the conversation between the Ambassador and Debbie is going on, to all please stay on mute, but feel free to keep your cameras open. It's always lovely to see people here. Okay, Debbie, and I pass it over to you.
Wonderful. So good evening, everybody, and a big welcome to Madam Ambassador Hotovely. On behalf of the British Friends of Shalva, we are delighted to have this special opportunity to meet you, and we want to thank you for joining us this evening. And as Gaby and Kalman have alluded to, today is International Women's Day. And although you're the 18th Israeli ambassador to the UK, you're the first woman to be appointed to this role. So I'd like to start by asking you what this experience has been like so far for you, and whether there have been any challenges to overcome.
Thank you so much. Well, I cannot start just speaking about life in London without saying something about Shalva. So thank you so much for hosting me tonight. Very few things that I can do as ambassador that I would say really reflect the Israeli spirit. Ambassadors do universities and academic life and research, and we do so many things on high tech and technology. But some things really represent the Israeli soul. Not just Israeli abilities or how much we are gifted as Jews that came from all over the world to the Jewish only homeland. And I think Shalva is really a symbol to the Israeli spirit and to the Jewish soul. And I've seen it when I visited Shalva for the first time. And I was honored to receive from Rabbi Kalman Samuels, this great book. I think in English it's called, let me be accurate, Dreams Never Dreamed. And I think some of it is, again, something about Israel. I think Israel has become something that our grandparents, dreamt about, Jewish state, Jewish homeland, Jerusalem, but it became really one of the most impressive, inspiring countries in the world. And part of it is what Shalva is doing at the moment, the sensitivity to every person, every child, and really a role model to the entire community around the world that is doing different things with children with special needs. I think Shalva is a great role model. So thank you so much for having me tonight. It's really different, but it's really the best I could do as an ambassador to spend this evening. So thank you so much. So you asked me how it has been. So it's not a secret. I came on a very, very challenging times. COVID is not regular for none of us. We all experienced the difficulty of not having the personal interaction that ambassadors need in order to work. So the only thing I can say that I'm very optimistic at the moment, after I received 2 vaccines, thanks to the Israeli vaccination program that they decided, the Prime Minister has decided to send all the Israeli diplomats, as much as the foreign diplomats in Israel, to be vaccinated. So we had to travel to Israel back and forth twice to receive a vaccine. And in Britain, as you know, the vaccine program is again working very well. You're leading in Europe. So I really hope that this difficult time will be forgotten as just the beginning was quite difficult, but I really hope that things will really get better as I will meet people.
Absolutely. We hope the time comes very soon where we all get our vaccinations and we can come and meet you in person. That would be wonderful. So I believe you haven't yet been presented at the court of St. James. And how have you been able to connect with the British Jewish community since your arrival?
Oh, thank God to Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a very Jewish holiday. So we had 8 candles and like, I think 20 events. So every evening we celebrated with different communities. I really enjoy, again, being in touch with the chief rabbi. We have conversation every few weeks, and it's really impressive, again, to hear about all the chesed in the community. I find the community very warm and welcoming. I also had a chance to speak to the Manchester community, not just in London, and I really hope soon we will go to more places in the UK, like the small communities in Leeds and Liverpool, and even Scotland and Ireland. So I really want to have the ability to meet everyone. Technology can help. And just in general, I would say that many issues on the table. It's a very Zionist community, but I think this year was really difficult for all of us because not being able to travel. Israel is really your neighbor, and you're so used to traveling back and forth. This year was quite a challenge to the community.
Definitely. We hope the skies are going to open up sometime soon, that we can be traveling more frequently. So we're actually interested in your journey to becoming an ambassador for Israel. Was this a role that you aspired to take, or was it an unexpected development in your career?
Absolutely unexpected. I would say most of my life were unexpected. I wasn't planning to be a politician. When I grew up, I always say that when I meet people and they ask me about what was my dreams and did I always wanted to be a politician or a diplomat, or am I planning to be a prime minister, those kind of questions. I always say that being a politician is not a profession for a nice young Jewish girl. So this was the perception when I grew up, that this is not a profession for nice people in general. Whether they're men or women. And I grew up in a very ideological community. You should have devoted your life to whatever is good for your country. And this is definitely the ideologies that my parents came from. They said, whatever you do, just make sure that you do something for the public arena. Don't just be focused on your own career. And it was a message that I grew up with. But I was planning to be a law professor. Basically, I was a jurist. I finished both my degrees in distinction. I'm mentioning that not to brag, but just to say this was my route, to be an academic and to be a lawyer and a law professor. I loved law. I thought that this is the way to make justice. And I was really inspired from the years in law school. I spent so many years in university. I think I was like 10 years in university because I did the first degree, the second degree, started to write my doctorate. So if you check my background, it's more academic, or I would say dealing with law than anything else. And then there was a phone call that changed my life. I was also a journalist, but I would say it wasn't really as a profession. I was academics that was, having my academic career, and I was writing a column in the newspaper, and I was part of a television show that was very popular those days. And one day I received a phone call from a man you're all familiar with. His name was Benjamin Netanyahu. And it was his secretary that said, Mr. Netanyahu would like to meet you. I remember exactly when it was, because it was a few days before my 27th birthday. So I have a book that the prime minister gave me, but he wasn't the prime minister. It's important to remember. It was a former prime minister, was the head of the opposition. And I met him in the Israeli parliament, in the Knesset. And this was my first meeting with him when I was 27. And it was my birthday when I met him. And he heard it's my birthday, gave me his book as a present. And it's devoted with his words. And that's it. So I came to this meeting, and I didn't realize yet that my life had changed, but it happened. And then after a few times we met, elections were declared in Israel, something that became very popular in the last year. We just keep on doing it. We love democracy. So he said, I would like to offer you to come and join the Likud, the ruling party so far. And I said, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm planning an academic career. And then he said a very nice sentence that I think it's something that everyone is in the, I would say, in the world of being activist in something can you know, identify with. He said, do you want to be a spectator or an actor? That if you want to watch the game, then watch the game from the academic world. You can write your researches and stuff. But I mean, he's the son of historians, so I'm sure he really respects researchers and people that do academic work. But he said, if you really want to help your country at the moment, come and be an actor and be active and be part of politics. And I've decided to take the challenge. I was young enough to take it. No really damage to my career, I said. If worse comes to worse, I can always go back to university. And when I was 30, I was elected to the Knesset as the youngest member of parliament. And it was a great pleasure and honor. I know it sounds strange to say pleasure about politics, but it was a great pleasure to represent such a wonderful people of Israeli politics, always interesting, very fascinating. So I wasn't planning a political career, but I ended up doing 11 years of very, very rich and full political life. I was for 4 years deputy foreign minister. I really enjoyed that. I don't think you understand how what's the strength of Israel before you start traveling all around the world and you experience how other countries look at Israel. I think I was really inspired. I mean, during my years at the Foreign Office, we got a visit of the Prime Minister of India for the first time. This is where Israel has started to diverse its bilateral relations with many countries in the world that we didn't used to have such a strong relations. And I think just in general, Israel is a major power in the world. And this is something that really impressed me, to see how things look from outside. And I was very much interested in diplomatic work, but I didn't think that my political career will lead me to there. And then just a few months ago, there was a point in time where the Prime Minister said, I really need someone that I trust in London. There are two places that are important for us, as you know, and this is where I need the people that I really trust, Washington and London. And I really asked you to be in London. The reason, by the way, Washington was not the story, because at that time it was a unity government, and it was a very small time that the Israeli ambassador could be a politician in Washington. So in London, it was a case that he could make his man for his woman to represent the country for a few years. And then it became a family discussion because I had to get back to my husband. And then he said, let me convince him. So the Prime Minister called my husband and he said, this is one of the most important roles in Israeli diplomacy. And I need your wife, the minister, to do that. And I really hope that you'll enjoy it as a family. So we had a family thinking whether we would like to change our life, because this is a really difficult to leave, to leave your country and to move to another country. And we made a decision because the importance of the role, and because we really thought that London is a fascinating arena. We said we'll take it. So this is how I ended up to be Israel's first female ambassador in London.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all that background with us. And I'm going to be coming on to your role and your vision for it. But before we leave this topic, I just wanted to ask who your female role models were growing up.
I think I should start with my mother. When I joined politics, one of Israel's famous mayors, she was a woman, very famous one, her name is Miriam Farberg. And when she met me for the first time, she said, I want to help you because as a woman, I believe in women, young women leadership. And then she said, let me tell you something. Behind every man, there is a strong woman. Behind every strong woman, there is her mother. And I think it's true. I think I was very inspired from my mother. My mother is a big feminist. She always teach me to don't feel that there are any borders to my dreams. And she really inspired me, I think, and she still is. And she was definitely one of the biggest helps I got and received when I became mother myself, because she really helped with the children. In Israel, nanny is not a very common thing. So we really used the help of my parents, and it was always there to do whatever we needed. And the truth is, I wasn't allowed at home, so I was what they call in Israel, Ima shel Shabbat, mother for Shabbat. So I think this is the first woman. The second woman would be probably Golda Meir. I was inspired from her work actually as a foreign minister. When I was at the foreign ministry in Israel, one of the greatest projects that Golda made when she was a foreign minister was the international foreign aid that Israel is doing. It's called Mashav, and it's very different than any other international foreign aid. Most countries just give money to countries that need help. Israel is giving abilities and knowledge, and she created this amazing projects in Africa of bringing Israeli technologies to agriculture and making groups of women leadership that till today we still have it in Haifa. It's the Center Carmel, and it's a beautiful project of empowering women. And many of the people that were students in those projects became head of countries. So this is a very, very impressive project, and her vision in general was very impressive. So I think Golda Meir is the second woman that I can mention. There are many others, but you know, in Israel's world. But I think my mother and Golda Meir are two good examples to how far you can go as a woman.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, as Kalman was saying earlier when we joined the call, Shalva would not be the reality that it is today, without his incredible wife at his side. It was Malki's dream and vision and spirit that really made Shalva the amazing place that it is in the world. And so I'm curious to hear a bit more about your impression of visiting the new center for the first time, Ambassador, when you visited it.
When I visited Shalva.
Yes, the National Center.
I think the first thing you really, okay, let me start with what I felt. When I walked in, I said, I want to live there. You really want to be part of it. There is something about the way the team is working that you're saying, this is something really big. You're part of something bigger than you. This is the thing. This is not about, you know, doing things in a very professional way or that. This is not the story. I mean, they're very professional, of course, but the thing is that they try in every way to make those children to build their future. And I think that by having really the first, I don't know what's the best way to say that, but this is really the best tools that the world of, you know, working with kids that have disabilities and special needs are happening in Shalva. It's like to go to NASA. You really can see where the world can go with having dreams with no borders. And the second thing is the very sensitivity to the emotional needs of the kids, because there is a big thing with you know, how they can make progress when it comes to seeing their abilities and you know, doing things, but there is also the sensitivity of how their room looks like, the fact that it's a home, it's a real home. And each of you, when you will walk into Shalva, you would say, I wish my home would have looked like that. Ambassador's house is very nice, believe me. It's a beautiful house in London, but nothing can come to this special touch that Malki created on every single floor and room that the kids are part of. And the other thing I would say is bringing them to the working arena and the fact they work. They're being productive, and everyone wants to feel like he has a meaning and he gives something to the place where he lives, and they give so much. And I think the fact that every Israeli was identifying with this amazing group of musicians that were supposed to represent Israel, but in the last minute they decided that they won't be able to do that because another value of Shabbat. I think Israelis were so proud of the fact that they represent the Jewish spirit. From one hand, they come and they create the best music. From the other hand, we remember there is Shabbat. So this is something that is so big.
Absolutely. I can really see that Shalva and the Shalva band are an incredible asset to you as an ambassador to be able to show them off of what your country can do.
Absolutely, yes. This is my dream, actually, when things will be open, to cooperate with Shalva when it comes to diplomatic things. Yeah.
Fantastic. So that really leads me to the next part of my questions, because I don't know how many people in our Zoom meeting this evening are aware, but that since the Abraham Accords were signed in September last year, Shalva has been actively building bridges with the Abraham Accords countries. And the UAE ambassador to the USA made the connection between Shalva and the Ministry of Community Development in the UAE. And they've been working together to share knowledge and best practice, holding a joint seminar recently focusing on early intervention. And this was for government officials and professionals and parents involved in the field of disabilities, working with who they refer to as people of determination, not people of disabilities. I thought that was really clever. And this is just the beginning of many more collaborative projects planned between Shalva and the UAE. And Shalva is also involved with the Ministry of Labor in Bahrain, where it hopes to develop similar relations. So I wanted to ask you how you found your relationship to be with the ambassadors of the Abraham Accords countries in the UK. And what about the other countries that are considering joining this rapprochement and keen to normalize relations with Israel?
Well, I think this is one of the greatest news I've heard, the fact that Shalva is sharing practices with our new friends in the Gulf. I think that in order to understand how much this issue is important to me, the first meetings when I came to London were actually of the new friends in the Gulf, our Arab counterparts that were really excited to meet each other. We met each other, and we met also the ambassadors of our first peace agreements, the Jordanian and the Egyptian, and then we moved forward to the new friends in the Arab world. And there was something so exciting about it, because I would say for the first time in Israel's history, there is a real warm peace that is going all the way to people. And we really dreamed on that. When we pray about peace, every Jewish prayer mentions peace. We mean, of course, peace in much deeper than just normalization between countries, but there is something that really shows that a new chapter is being opened with the Arab world. And when we're talking about cooperation, it's not just about military or security, which are very natural to countries that have the same threats, but we're actually speaking about civil cooperation. And nothing can be bigger than really taking the Shalva role model as something you can do together. So I really think it's a great thing.
Fantastic. And so I know we're a bit short on time. I want to ask you just finally what you would like to achieve in your time here. What would you like your legacy to be at the end of this role?
Well, as you heard about my life, it's better not to plan. It's better just to take opportunities. But in general, I would say there are two main things. One is to create an upgrade of the bilateral relations with Britain as Brexit now happened. So Britain is now creating a new allies because it's now not connected to the European Union on a formal way, and it can build a new future to Britain. And I think Israel is an essential partner and an ally that this can be reflected in a new trade agreement and really sharing practices in many fields. I had that for the last 4 months when it came to health issues. Everyone here were really inspired from the way Israel was working very fast and from the fact that we have a digital system. So everyone is now asking me about how we can share practices on this issue. And one of the things that we were very excited to do is to share practices on this issue. And our experts were very, very glad to do webinars to brief people from all levels, from starting from parliament members and going through the health ministries, and the health ministers were doing good work together. So I would say this is very important to upgrade the bilateral relations. The second thing I would say is to changing paradigms when it comes to the Middle East. For many years, the main issue was the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And today it's very clear that the biggest issue today in our region is the Iranian issue. This is a very central thing on my national security agenda. So this will be another issue that we will deal with. And of course, Jewish community is always part of, I would say, the more nice part of my work as ambassador. And I would love to see the young generation. As a mother for young kids, I send my kids to a Jewish school, and I really want to interact with the young generation.
Fantastic. Well, we wish you very much luck. We hope that it's going to be an enjoyable and rewarding and fulfilling few years that you have here with us. We look forward to getting to know you better. And thank you so much for your support of Shalva. It means a lot to us. And I just want to hand over to Gaby, because I know that there were some questions that came in prior to this evening. We want to give time to air those. And then feel free, anyone who wants to add a question in the chat, there's time for us to take a few questions now.
First of all, thank you to both of you for that very inspiring conversation. Ambassador Hotovely, it was amazing and purely by chance. And I promised to everybody on this group that we hadn't discussed this before, but you mentioned one of your inspirations was Mashav and the Carmel Institute. And by coincidence, tomorrow afternoon, I have a 2-hour lecture that I'm delivering to a team of about 40 healthcare professionals from countries as diverse as Uzbekistan and the Philippines and the Seychelles, all about Shalva and the Shalva programs, particularly focused on our inclusion programs and support that we give to families. And that is under the banner of the Mashav, who approached us to be part of their program. So we are very...
Thank you for sharing this with me. This is really exciting.
So that by pure chance, that's tomorrow afternoon in my calendar. So that was really quite amazing. So now, if it's okay with you all, I'll field some of the questions we had in advance and that have been sent through to me in the chat. So thank you for everybody for doing that. The first one from Alan, the question is, what new initiatives can you suggest to support Jewish students at British universities who are facing constant anti-Israel rhetoric?
Well, I think basically what we need to do is to make sure that they will have all the information, because sometimes some of the people don't have enough information when some of the things that are being addressed around Israel are basically lies. And in order to do that, you need to have a deep understanding of the Middle East, not just, the regular headlines that are around Israel. And so I really believe in Israeli studies. You need to learn where the country started from. Let me share with you a story. One of Israel's scholars, her name is Dr. Einat Vil, she had a great success in, addressing the Israeli case around the world, especially in academia. She's a graduate from many top the Ivy League universities in the US. I think she's a Harvard graduate. And she always says that one of the things she's amazed to find out that people have no idea how Israel was established. They were all sure that there was a Palestinian state. And one day those Zionists came from Europe and they basically occupied these poor Palestinians. And when she gets back to the facts and says that, no, there were Jews that lived forever in their own state. And when she's mentioning the UN resolution to have an Arab state next to a Jewish state, and the fact that the Arabs refused, most of the people, most of the students have no idea that this was the reality. So I would say some of it is really to be experienced more with the facts, perspective about the Middle East, to understand narratives. I think this is part of it.
Thank you. Moving on, slightly different, back more in the realms of the Abraham Accords and the peace relations. How optimistic are you that Saudi Arabia will sign up to a formal peace or trade agreement with Israel in the foreseeable future? And what, if anything, can Israel do to make this more likely?
About Saudi Arabia specific or in general more countries?
Well, the question from Mark was specifically about Saudi Arabia, but I guess Saudi Arabia and other nations that we could now look to.
Well, we really speak to everyone, and we want everyone to join the circle of peace. And I really hope that very soon we will have more countries that will join that. I wouldn't bet that Saudi Arabia will be the next. Like, it's not very close. And of course, there is also the dynamics with the Americans and Saudi Arabia, so it's very complex.
Thank you. A question here from Philip, who I believe is in Leeds, who says, there doesn't seem to be excitement in the Israeli public in the coming up elections other than by the politicians themselves. Do you think that Israelis are actually fed up with the whole process?
First of all, it's the first election that is under COVID. So it's very different. You don't have the big conferences, and the whole thing is still in a pandemic time. So I think this is part of it. And the pandemic made people to be very much concerned about their future, because it was a very shocking thing for many people. So I believe this is another thing, that this is a dramatic change in the human history. And I'm sure the reflection of it will be for many years from now. Vaccination won't solve all the issues that COVID has created, definitely not when it comes to the economic crisis it created. But this is the first thing. But doing election again and again is definitely not a thing that we expected when the whole process started. So I'm wishing really, I'm going to vote this week. The embassy is going to vote on Thursday as part of being the leaders in the voting process. Diplomats always vote first. So we will vote before the election, and I just hope that we will have a stable government.
As I think we all share your sentiment very much.
Yes.
Today being International Women's Day, when we look at ourselves and our own Knesset here, I think that the statistic is about 25% of the current Knesset is represented by female MKs. What can Israel do to try and move that and to make sure, ideally, I think everybody feels it should be 50-50 representation. What initiatives could be taken to try and readdress that balance?
Well, first of all, this is also a British problem. I just checked what's the percentage in Britain, and actually in Israel, there is a little bit more than in Britain. So even this very proud democracy still needs to work on its women representation, including the women in cabinet. I also checked that before the lecture, and I was surprised to find out it's very far from being equal. So first of all, this is a Western problem all around. Some countries definitely succeeded more on this issue. I think part of it, one of the things I did as a legislator was to make sure that every party will have women representatives. Some parties in Israel don't have women representatives, and I think most of the parties don't have enough women representatives. So I do think that by saving the spots to women, that every party should have an equal representation, this will be a good thing to start with till things will be balanced. After things will be balanced, you can don't say that this is an issue, but as long as women are not represented on the equal parliament, cabinet, you can still need to do things in an active way to make sure that there is representation. So I would say those are the things. I'll be very curious to hear what is Britain doing about this issue, because again, we are very similar representation, both of our countries.
I think there's work to be done on both ends.
But there is a good news about it. Just one thing. Since Israel was established, there was always women representation, but every Knesset we say there are more women. So it means that it keeps on growing, and it's very good. The process is in a good trend.
Thank you. We have again from Alan, which is, if you can, do you have any way that you could actually explain if there's a game plan to deal with the change in the US strategy on the Iran nuclear deal?
I think you can read in the news. It's quite out there. I don't think I can share with you inside information. about intimate conversations we have with the US, but I think the agenda is quite public, so you can know what it is. Do you want me to get back to the headlines? Because no. Biden wrote a very nice article in the New York Times. It says everything he thinks about the Iranian deal.
One final one, I guess, there's the question on everyone's mind, which is, what would be your understanding of how the agreement is going to work out between Israel and the UK and allowing tourism, and the idea, of whether the green passport and the vaccinations are going to allow many people in this, environment here have second homes in Israel. Many people have got, their families there. They're desperate to get to Israel. Are you able to do anything in your role as a diplomat to try and ease that process and make sure that there is an understanding between the two, create a corridor?
Well, first of all, this was one of the first issues that our health ministers were discussing, how to handle the green passports. So it's definitely on the table and on our agenda, and I find that very, very important that brothers can meet each other. We call you brothers, brothers and sisters. We need to see how it will work out. I think the first step is, again, we open, I think for the first time in Israel's history, people that are Israeli citizens weren't allowed to get in. So when people say, oh my God, I cannot go, I would say, I'm a diplomat, I cannot go. I'm representing my country and I cannot go. There was a certain point of time that none of us could have gone. And this is exactly where it changes. So it's going to be a process. If I understand correct, there is a whole debate in Britain whether you can or cannot do, make this, this kind of, some people would say this is more of a discrimination against people that don't want to take the vaccine. There was a whole debate here about green passports. But when it comes to our countries, we can have, at least to the people that got the vaccines, we can see how we can work it out and let them ability to travel. But as far as I know, it won't happen before the summer.
Wow. Okay, I'm not sure that that's what everyone on here wanted to hear.
Let me just explain what's the reason. The reason is that unfortunately, even when we are vaccinated, we can still carry all types of variants that are going around the world. So the British variant was quite famous, but we already moved to the South African one and to the one who's in Brazil. So people are still learning this whole issue of variants and how vaccinated people can travel around with their variants. So this is the issue that we need to check.
I think everyone will be reassured to know that there's actually, though, that you're championing the cause, though, and well aware of I guess, the need for us all. I'm probably one of the few that's desperate to come the other way, but we need to be able to travel freely in both directions that we all miss.
Yes.
I'm conscious of the time and of your time, and I want to thank you so much for this evening. It's been really, really interesting. People are messaging me privately saying how wonderful it was to actually get to meet you. I understand in these times, feeling connected to the community whilst being locked away must be incredibly challenging. And thank you for already offering for other events for Shalva. We will, I'm afraid, be definitely taking you up on it, and soon. And other people in this forum have been messaging me as well, asking whether you would come to other events. So I'll be following up with you after that. But we thank you so much for taking the time tonight, and to everybody who came out to meet you tonight, and look forward to continuing the discussions and working together to do what we can to promote everything we're doing for Israel, both here and abroad. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. Please count me in as one of Shalva's friends, please.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody. Good night, stay safe, and I hope it's not long before I am able to come on a plane the other way and meet you over there, and soon you're back at Shalva with us here. Thank you all so much. Good night and take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.